Hi, I'm Molly Matthews. Welcome to Job IQ Outside the Box. Today we're talking with Donna Sawyer. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Molly.
Thanks for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your career before your current position. What's your arc been?
It's been hill and dale, up and down. I started off right out of undergraduate working in radio, and realized very quickly that if I wanted to really make strides, I needed a graduate degree. And so I went back to school to study business and got my MBA, which was quite a different thing for me because I had been in creative my whole life. So the discipline of an MBA taught me how to think. The creativity taught me how to think outside the box.
I love it.
So I started in radio. Then I went into the corporate world, and I was in advertising. I worked for Young and Rubicam, and that again, the combination of creative and business together. And from there, I liked the creativity, but I did not like that the client had all the say. So I went to the client side and went to work for AT&T, and stayed in the corporate side of business for a long time, and missed the I guess the creativity, and I've always had a love of museums and the arts. And I thought, well, after I had my children, I thought maybe this is a time to make a change. And so I started looking for a job in the arts, and ended up as a marketing and communications person in the museum world, and stayed there until I left to write a book, and spent a couple of years doing that. And then
Which is how we met.
Yes,
writing a book.
Writing a book,
Mm-hmm.
Our writers group.
Mm-hmm.
And then went back into the arts world, and this time as a CEO of an arts council. So,
And I remember, well, there was a period there where you had, and I consider retired the R word. I don't like to use it. I don't
Yes.
think anyone retires. But there was a period of time where I knew you from the writers group where you were going to be a writer.
mm-hmm.
And that was kind of
Full-time.
that was the next stage, and you were no longer going to work in institutions, organizations, businesses.
Right.
So what happened?
What happened is a move to Baltimore, Maryland. And Baltimore is one of those cities that when you go there, their arms are outstretched, and they whatever you have, they're willing to take in and let you help with. And I saw this position for Chief of External Affairs for the Arts Council, and I thought everything they needed I had.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wanted to be in the arts community, and I thought that would be a great way to be introduced. And I had no intention of staying a long time, just to get my feet wet, get to know some people, and absolutely fell in love. And
And they fell in love with you too.
Well, 6 months in, the CEO said, "Well, I'm retiring," and it was like, "Oh, okay." And I had no intention of applying for the job, but the pressure from the board chair and from the staff, I went ahead and threw my hat in the ring, and here we are.
Here you are.
Here we
so
are.
you are now, what is your exact title?
I am CEO of the Baltimore Office of Promotion and the Arts.
And how many people report to you?
When we're not in festival mode, we do 3 major festivals a year, about 68. And when we're in festival mode, it's probably close to 100.
Not exactly a retirement gig.
No.
And I remember when you got the job, and I was encouraging you to
Yes,
take
you
it.
were. You were one of the people pushing me.
Exactly. You said to me, I have my dream job.
I do.
And you mentioned your age. I don't know if you wanted, we're really not mentioning age on this, but I have my dream job, and let's just say at over 50.
Yes.
Definitely. And it gives me, as I say it, I get goosebumps from it.
Really?
I really do. I mean, how many people who are watching this, listening to this, think to themselves, I'm done.
Well, I thought that.
Yeah.
And
you'd found out something else creative to do. You weren't done, but...
No, but I thought I'm not at the age where people hire you anymore. I really did believe that. And when I started thinking more clearly about it, you don't really hire people, you hire skills. And I was skillful. And so what a waste it would be if I sat on that. So the worst anybody can ever say to you is no. And we've all been told no. We've all gotten over it. So I figured, why not? If they say no, I still have things I can do.
Right.
If they say yes, I have a great job. So.
And what skills do you think, we often hear that younger people bring higher tech skills, although I know you and I both are very committed to not letting age have anything to do with our technology skills. But what do you think specifically employers and the world need to think about? What are the advantages of hiring someone who has decades of experience?
I think it's the perspective. I can remember when I was younger, I thought I have to make a decision because a decision has to be made, and this is the only decision. When you've had the experience, you know that decisions are made constantly. It's never a decision. It's the decision right now. Perspective gives you the knowledge that there is more than what you're looking at. Different people bring different things to the table. Situations change, the economy changes. All of that you can factor into the things that are the pressures on your organization or your particular project. If you don't know that, you can't factor those things in, and your chances of success are not as great.
So employers get almost like a twofer, or they get a lot more with someone who's already learned from a number of mistakes. Not that you're still not going to have things to learn.
Well, it isn't even the mistake so much as just the experience. If for example, we the organization I inherited, we have several specialties. There are people that are logistics people that do festivals. There are people that do writing and marketing and public relations. There are people that work on the Arts Council, that work with artists and art organizations. And they tend to silo themselves in the things that they do. Having worked in large multinational organizations, I know that internal communications is as important as external communications. So I can set up my employees for success because I know how to integrate them with each other as well as display them to the rest of the world. So it's experience. It's not a mistake that I know that, and it's not a mistake of what they're doing. It's just lack of exposure.
And you know what to look for.
Exactly.
So, and you've done, I know from having observed you, you've gone in and you've added efficiencies of scale. You've added a more, from my perspective, employee-focused management style. You have probably, and my guess would be that you've reached out more to the community. It's a less insular organization.
Absolutely.
All of those things, because you've learned how to do that when you were at the Hirshhorn or when you were at the Children's Television Network or the other places where you've been.
Well, the other thing is, I think as you move through your career, you learn that collaboration works so much better than competition. So if I'm collaborative, even with people who you might think are competitive with me, you can get rid of the barriers and everybody succeeds. You know, the tide rises, it makes all boats rise. So
you also remind me of, I've heard other people say, over 50, say what younger managers don't realize is I don't want their job. I'm coming in and they're not going to have to compete with me because I want to do the work, but I'm not gunning for the next 3 promotions.
No.
I'm just going to get the work done.
Well, I think that's one of the things that the search committee saw in me. This wasn't a step to someplace else. I'm happy where I landed. And so I can put everything I have into that particular position. So, and that's not to say that there aren't things that younger people should do, but there are also things that people with experience should do as well. And one of those is nurture the next CEO. I don't have to worry about whether you know, they're breathing down my neck.
Right.
You're
there trying may be, to, you want to cultivate that.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And one of the things I just recently put in place was that we need a career path for all employees. Probably not me, but
you can be an author.
Yeah.
Or you are an author as well as everything else.
Well,
you have the next stage planned already.
But I also think that's one of the important things for people that have worked for a long time. They know a job is not everything. So I do have my other life, which is writing. And what my board chair told me, don't give that up, because it makes you who you are. And if you give that up and you sink everything into this job, the person we hired will go away.
Oh, wow.
So that's something that a mature, well, again, maturity. Right. You understand that a total person is probably the best person for the job. Yeah.
And the other thing, just so it's clear, we're not necessarily saying age is a good or a bad. And what I've said in some of these other interviews is oftentimes when I get on a project, age disappears when you're focused on whatever it is you're going to deliver.
Absolutely.
Which raises my next question. All right, so you get this job, you're in this job. Has age been any kind of a barrier for you?
None.
It's not even an issue at this point?
No, none whatsoever. Not even to the point where, you know, when I'm introduced to somebody, they're taken aback by that I'm not 35 and fresh-faced.
They're not even expecting it.
It's about the skills again. Yeah. What am I bringing to the table?
Yeah. Well, you also present beautifully, so let's just say that presentation's part of it. Back to age. One other question I've asked everyone, I'm curious in your view. Do you think there is age discrimination in the workplace?
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
I believe that people prejudge if they see. I remember when I took the dates of my degree off of my resume. And I did that because I wanted them to meet me first. Because I knew if I met them, I could get them. If they saw the age, it would go in the circular file.
It does. There's studies that show exactly.
Well,
exactly
I have a friend who's a hedge hunter, and he said, you know, I don't present people over 35. I just don't.
Wow, the age gets younger and
yes,
younger. I've heard 50, I've heard 40. You're the first person to mention 30.
He said 35. I don't present them unless it's something spectacular or they have unique skills. And I think that's the other insurance for people. If you can develop very unique skills, they don't care how old you are. If you're, you know, the same as everybody else, you know, 35, you hit a wall.
Any other techniques or approaches that you've used in this job? It isn't an issue, I can see that, but and this is a high-profile leadership job where one might expect a more senior person. But is there any advice you would give people who are returning to the workplace or who are switching out of one career to another, and they want to do everything they can to minimize that bias against their age? Well,
I think you mentioned it really early in this conversation, and that was tech skills. Nothing ages you faster than I don't do computers, or I don't know about social media, or what's Twitter. You know, those kinds of, that kind of not keeping up. And since I'm in, you know, my career is communications based, I made it my business to know all of that stuff, to be able to, you know, be fluent in the current language of communications. So anything that keeps you current in your field will keep the discrimination somewhat at bay. But the other thing is, that I really try not to do with, especially with my younger employees, is to tell them, oh, I remember the time. They don't want to hear that.
Exactly.
They don't want
back in the day stories.
Tell me, and my kids, I make them crazy with it. But when I'm in the workplace, that's not relevant.
No, I agree.
Our experience together is relevant. So I don't go back.
It's very tedious. Whatever people do that, whatever the reference point
is.
And
I remember when people did it to me when I was first starting out, and I thought to, you know, the eye roll, the whole bit. it wasn't necessary.
It's also very threatening to a younger person who
Absolutely.
is aware that you have expertise to think, oh, this person's going to tell me what to do all the time.
Right.
And I want my job, and my job is to figure out what everyone's supposed to be doing. I'm the manager here. So
Right.
I think it really has a secondary danger because it plays into a bias they may be bringing towards you.
Well, I found...
Mom's going to tell me what to do.
Yes, and I found what works with the younger people, and especially in creative arts, everybody's 4 years old. So what I find is not telling people what to do, but asking them, have you thought about?
Yeah.
And let them tell me.
Yeah.
And it puts us on the same level.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I get a creative idea from somebody, compliment that idea. Don't say, yeah. Don't play it down, because it's important that you celebrate everybody's success.
Exactly. I just want to go back to the tech thing for two reasons. One is the sort of the memes and the things that are out there of grandparents trying to figure out how to get on Facebook.
It drives me crazy.
Me too. And it's like, it's not funny anymore. It was cute a few years ago. It's just like, please, do we have to have that stereotype? And other people would not allow those types of stereotyping. Other diversity issues would not be stereotyped like that.
And primarily it's women.
Yes, it is.
Who don't get it.
It totally is. And I also want to give you a compliment because you helped me early on. I remember we sat down to do our writers group and we all had laptops. And you said, I'm not letting somebody tell me I can't do this.
No.
And I thought, she's right.
You're right.
And now I consider myself, I've worked at it. It hasn't come, I didn't grow up with an iPad, but I'm pretty good.
Well, the truth of the matter is anybody today is not going to grow up with the technology tomorrow.
That's
so
true.
We're all learning all along the way. So it doesn't matter where you started. Yeah. It's how far you get.
Yes.
And the
skill set is knowing how to acquire the information because
absolutely.
It's going to change. And how to acquire the skills.
And also not being embarrassed to ask.
Exactly.
I have a young guy that does social media for me, and he said, let's do Facebook Live. And I said, well, Corey, show me how to do that.
Yeah.
Because not that I'm going to do it, but I would really like to know how to do this.
Exactly.
And it delighted him that he could show me.
Exactly.
So, and then now I have a new skill. So it's never being embarrassed by what you don't know and being aggressive about capturing the new information.
And having already enough skill sets when you walk in that you don't sit down and say, you don't
how do
lead
you turn
with,
this on?
Yeah, exactly. How do you turn this on? That isn't going to go. How do you learn Facebook Live or something that's unique? Yes. But the basics, because the bias is already, we'd hire you, but you might not be able to know how to Slack, or you might know, and those are important things, and they're not hard to learn.
Right.
That's the other thing, is they're not hard to learn.
They're not hard to learn.
I mean, coding might be hard to learn, but we're not coding.
Well, that's not even really hard.
Hard to learn, you're right.
I keep an HTML cheat sheet at my desk so that...
Do you really?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, because everything, I don't want to be the person that says, Corey, come in here.
Yeah.
I need to be able to do, if I need to code something, I need to be able to do that. And if there's some little squiggly line that's not working, I need to figure out why. So it is, and it's not rocket science. It really isn't.
Right. And I used to call my college-age son, and finally when he went away to college, he said, Mom, you can't keep calling me. So I learned a really interesting trick, is if you Google an IT question, you can get an answer.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's where I got the cheat sheet from.
There you go. I love it. Okay, let's see. I have a bunch of other questions. Actually, I don't have that many more questions. Tell me, what would you say to someone who came to you in the position you were in a few years ago, who for whatever reason, they're a little tired of what they've been doing, they've been downsized, what their industry is growing, they're changing in a way that they're not going to fit in. What would you tell them to do first, second, and third? First is what's your passion. If you can find your passion, then you can request of the universe a way to use it. And I'm a big believer in knowing what you want, asking for it, and somehow, some way it shows up. It's like putting in an order in a diner. Absolutely. And I have never been denied. I understand. When I went after this job,
I didn't say, I want to be CEO of the Baltimore Office of Promotion in the Arts. I said, I would like to do something where I can add value to an organization and it's in a creative industry. Boom, here we are. So the first thing I would say was figure out your passion. Because if you don't know what you want, you won't recognize it when it shows up.
And articulate it.
Yes, and speak it to everybody.
Yes.
Tell people what it is you want to do, how you want to do it, and then do your homework. What are people who are, I read all of the art blogs because I need to be up to date with who does what. Everybody's going crazy about Amy Sherrill. I knew about Amy Sherrill a decade ago because I kept up with this young artist who was making a statement with her art.
She's the Michelle Obama portrait.
She did Michelle Obama's portrait. And she's not a discovery to me. And that's the other thing I said. I want put out to the universe. I would love to meet this person.
Seriously, that was
2 weeks ago. I met that person.
I saw the picture on Facebook.
Yes. So it is really the desire is first. Then, as I said, do your homework, and never be still. Don't wait for it to come. You have to aggressively go after it. And I don't mean call everybody and say, give me a job or do this, but network with people. If you like the arts, you need to be in museums. Maybe not in a job, but you should at least be someplace close to the people that...
Or you can be volunteering.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's one of the best ways, I think. I love the Diane Rehm story where she just volunteered as a volunteer at the public radio station, and the next thing you know, this woman is... she's got one of the hottest shows on public radio because she was a volunteer and they needed somebody and she was there. She stepped in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What would you tell someone, because there is a lot of data that shows also that if you look for a job and you don't get one, that after about 6 months you put in less energy. It just gets so discouraging. So what would you say to someone who's in that position where they've sent the resumes out, they've gone to the networking meetings, they've volunteered, and nothing is happening for them?
One of the best techniques, I think, is informational interviews. Start at the top. People that are interested in or doing what you want to do, if they're the right kind of people, they're interested in helping other people either understand or get into the industry. Call them up and say, I would just like to talk to you about what it is that you do. I've done that on many occasions. I got my first job that way. I went to do an informational interview with a radio station. And after the interview, the person that owned the radio station said to me, I got a receptionist job. Would you like to interview for that job? And I said, absolutely. And that's how I got my first job. But I didn't go looking for a job. I went looking for information so that I could use it eventually to get a job. And when there's not that pressure of, I want you to hire me, you'd be surprised what comes your way. But your comment about volunteering, informational interviews, industry, trade shows or whatever.
And things like that.
Yes, those are the things that you should do. If it's not working, there's a reason it's not working, and maybe you can detect what that is.
Yes. So. And then you can get some professional help or coaching or whatever. The other thing I just wanted to mention, because you talked about going in somewhere to just have an interview or an informational interview. Oftentimes people think that the system is you send a resume in, there's a specific job available, and they're looking to fill that job. And a lot of the jobs are hidden. Or you might walk in for an informational interview and there's no job, but the person who's interviewing you says, wait a minute.
Yes.
This person could plug in right here, solves my problem.
Yep.
So you present yourself as someone who's just building a relationship, but there's a way that all of a sudden they see how you as a person they can plug in.
Well, that happened to me the first time I worked at an arts council. I worked at the Arts and Science Council in Charlotte, and I was doing freelance writing. And so I interviewed this woman who had just been hired as the director of the Arts and Science Council. And 2 weeks later, I got a phone call. She said, I was thinking about you. I really enjoyed our interview, and I have a vice president of marketing position available. Would you be interested in doing that? I couldn't get down there fast enough.
I bet.
But
what are you doing
I was
right now?
not looking for a job. I had a job, but I was doing, again, my interests outside of work was writing. And so I went to interview for that and ended up
another
in a
theme
more
that I
senior position.
hear from people I'm talking to is, I don't want to diminish it or miss it, is you delivered and work hard in all of these situations.
There's no alternative.
Right. That's what people saw.
And also come prepared. I once knew a young reporter who, she got her dream job as a correspondent for a local station, a reporter for a local station. And once she was there, she didn't do anything else. She lasted 6 months because she was not prepared. So when you go in, you have to get better than you were when you started. You can't just coast.
It's what have you done for me lately?
Exactly.
Every day.
Exactly.
So you have been in this job in Baltimore before you got the executive director. How long have you been there in the organization?
15 months.
15 months. Wow.
Yes.
I didn't realize it that short. Are you happy this has happened? Would you recommend other people get their dream job at this point in their life?
Absolutely. It is, in some ways, it's a little overwhelming because it's everything I always wanted at once. But the maturity thing, again, allows me to look at it holistically and say, okay, this is how much we can get done. This is what can wait till later. And at the same time, keeping your mind open and your eyes open for what you may not have seen that could probably be pulled in at another time. So it's, I also think having a challenge, it's like that, when you temper something and you stress it and it gets stronger. I think that's what happens when you have a job like this. So while I probably, I wouldn't mind it being less of a 24/7 job, but it's not killing me. It's just making me stronger. So,
and you are skilled at setting boundaries too. You maybe need to set a little more at a certain time, but you know how to do that. You're not going to let this job eat your life.
No, and that's the other thing that's important about being mature in a position is that if you lose yourself, you can't get the job done. So, I still save time for, my husband. I still save time for my children. I save time for my writing. I took 5 days off just a couple of weeks ago and went on a writing retreat to finish my second book. All of those accomplishments make me more valuable to the organization as well as to myself.
Last question. Best moment, worst moment?
Best moment was when I found out I got the job.
Yeah.
Worst moment was when I found out that some of the board members didn't think I was the right person for the job. And it was that age discrimination thing. And what I think changed their minds was in my interview, I could show them the value they were getting with somebody who had life experience and also skills to get the job done.
So you were able to turn it around?
I was able to turn it around. I also had the support of several other board members. But there are factions of people who just think, without knowing anything, no, she's too old. I don't think she's going to, bring any vitality to the organization.
Meanwhile, you're one of the most active,
vital people. Boy, are they
people.
surprised now.
Right?
So it's almost even more joyous because I know that I'm demonstrating for them. They've learned a lesson. Don't prejudge anybody. So.
Well, and also, how often in our society do we see older people depicted being energetic, doing things? You'll see a lot of pictures, and or advertising in it, it never even features. It's starting to a little bit, but there's not much of an age diversity in most visuals. Anything I forgot to ask you?
No, I think, I think you covered what I think is critical for people over 50 to know about the job, searching for a job or being in a job, just knowing you can do it.
Yeah.
And don't let anybody question you about your capabilities.
Well, one of the reasons I'm doing this too is because if you see someone like you doing what you aren't sure you can do and they've done it, it empowers you to say, hey, if they did it, I can do that.
Well, the reason at first I told you I did not apply for this position, but you encouraged me to do it. My board chair, who's about the same age I am, encouraged me to do it. And this is going to sound really bad, but I was reading the AARP newsletter, and there was a woman who was 70 years old and just got a job as I wish I could remember her name, but she had just gotten a job at the Birmingham, Alabama Civil Rights Museum. 70 years old, and she had just gotten the job. She was, strong, vital, engaged. She had worked at Microsoft for decades, and she thought, I'm not done yet. And I thought, I'm not either. And so that's, between all the pushing, I said, let me see if I can make this happen. It happened.
It happened. I knew you were going to get that job.
You did. You told me that.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I was just waiting for you to decide. It was a commitment, and I think as another thing, as an older person, you think, how much do I want to work that hard? But then you get into it, and it's not work. It's fun.
Well, the thought of getting up every morning and being out there excites me. I have to do my stuff at the office. We have openings and events in the evening. It is just, I can pull my friends in, I can pull my family in, and they enjoy this with me. So it isn't that I'm missing anything.
Right.
I'm just widening the circle.
Yeah. It's your dream job.
Yes.
At the perfect age.
Absolutely.
Perfect age. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thanks for watching. This is Job IQ Outside the Box. You can subscribe down below, and there's lots of information on our website. Take care.